'cause I only have 2 cubes left, so we got one shot at this.
Yeah. One shot.
One shot.
We can't get more ice.
No, that's it. Well, I don't have any more cubes, like the fancy whiskey.
Oh,
cubes.
you have fancy whiskey
yes.
cubes. Okay, perfect.
I can get regular cubes, but I don't think we could do a cocktail podcast and use regular cubes and whiskey and not get made fun of, right?
Get judged pretty hard. Yeah.
We're already probably going to get judged for me using my hands to touch the ice.
You know, I don't mind that. It doesn't bother me.
I don't think anyone actually notices a difference. If you did a taste testing,
notice the difference? No.
Like if you legitimately did a taste testing, there's nobody that would know the difference on whether hands touch the ice or if it was one of those little clampy things.
Oh, see, I never thought it was about the taste. I thought it was about the germs.
Well, I think it's the oils.
Oh, I don't want the germs.
The oils from your hands.
The oils. I mean, but what if you wash your hands? Aren't the oils gone?
But then you have new oils from the soap.
And then you've got a soapy ass drink.
Just an oil swapper. Cleaning your hands doesn't actually clean your hands. It just changes the oils on your hands.
So I should never wash my hands, is what you're telling me.
No, you actually should set up hand desanitizing stations.
Yeah, well, that's called your asshole. That's why people used to get polio. Then they go swimming. Hey, let's put this in the public pools. And then, I'm going to get a little bit of water in my mouth. Oh, that was Timmy's poop in my mouth.
Oh, my God. So
that's why people,
that's how people got polio.
That's why people got sick. Actually,
but specifically polio or just sickness in general?
Well, polio more the, was it the DDT that they used to spray for bugs and stuff? They would just spray, and there's pictures of guys spraying this stuff on the beach, and the kids are playing in all this, what looks like dust or smoke, and it's all just poison. And then, you know what, right. the consequences or the symptoms after the fact were very much related to the same as polio. And so there's a lot of research that says actually it was probably most of polio cases were probably this poisoning. So it's pretty crazy. Wow, we're already
diving into it.
Vaccines here.
Practice.
Well, I guess nobody said anything about vaccines, but you know that's usually the cry is what about the polio vaccine?
I can't wait until we get some user generated questions, and then we get free reign to dive into whatever we want because somebody asked me.
Well, do you feel like? Maybe our listeners can, when somebody asks like a podcast, I've got a question. And, you know, maybe you go on to Twitter or X or whatever you call it now. Does anybody actually call it X? Because you could still go to twitter.com and it takes you there, right?
Yeah, He's got both, a redirect. Yeah.
Right? But I still see almost everything still says Twitter and even has the bird.
I still see the bird everywhere.
Still see the bird. Takes a while, I guess, for people to change, or like people are very resistant to it.
They are. I don't think Elon really cares though.
No, because they're going to X anyways.
Right.
How do you get a single lettered .com? How much do you pay for that?
Oh my God.
Do you think he owned that before? We know?
That's gotta be hundreds of thousands of dollars. We might have to look that up.
What did I search? I was searching. I was searching some different like, hey, how can different website names in the wealth area, and it was just like digitalwealth.com or something like that, and it was $100,000.
I mean, it's
for that .com.
It's pretty generic.
$100,000 for technically for nothing.
But who's? I don't know.
Good for you, whoever buys that.
Who is naming their business something so generic?
Yeah, that's true.
And then too, if you have something that generic,
Elon Musk.
Are you just hoping that people are accidentally hit .com instead of typing into the Google search and then that they land on your website? Like what's the hope there?
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, digital wealth. Yeah. Well, I guess maybe that it would be the top of search. I search digital wealth and that's the first thing that appears.
Yeah,
but it's the same thing as like, it's not like I'm searching sports. I'm searching ESPN or I'm searching.
But here's the thing, even if you type in something generic, there's a business out there that's still attacking those keywords.
There's
from
someone
an
better
SEO
than
perspective,
you out there. Yeah.
From a paid ads perspective. So like, unless you're looking up a definition specifically, the meaning of or the definition in your phrase you're using, you're going to see a business.
It's true.
So,
yeah, at least the first couple sponsored ones.
Paying $100,000 for a website domain that says digital wealth is just not worth it.
It was a really great idea in 2002.
Right.
It would have been a great idea.
Yep.
And somebody bought that for a bunch of money, and they were like, I'm going to hold on to this, and it'll be rich. And they're still waiting.
Somebody said that Al Gore's got a good idea,
Oh.
and then I'm going to capitalize on it.
There was a guy who, I remember this happening when I was in high school, so early 2000s. I graduated in 2004, if you care. That puts me at approximately 37 years of age.
I didn't care, but thank you.
Okay. This kid, he was, I don't even know if he was 18. He might have been 18. His name was Mike Rosoft. Like Mike, last name Rosoft.
Okay.
And he wanted to design websites. So he started a website called MikeRosoft.com. And he designed websites. And this is early 2000s, so a much different. There is no like plug and play back then. There was none of that existed. You had to learn a little bit of code to be able to do a website. So he's doing a website. He gets contacted by Microsoft, naturally, and they give him a cease and desist letter. And he says, "No, I'm not going to. This is my actual name." They said, "How about we give you?" It was like a couple of $1 million for your URL. And he said no. And so they took him to court. Guess who won? Fucking Mike Rosoft.
Mike Rosoft.
We need to find him and bring him on this podcast.
Find this man.
Mike Rosoft. Maybe that was just a story that my computer, what was it? Like advanced computing, which you learned nothing advanced. You learned how to use Microsoft Word and Excel. But maybe that teacher, that teacher just made that story up just to sound cool.
Might have.
Very well could have. But if Mike Rosoft is out there, we're going to find you.
We're going to find him. We have to invite him on. It's going to be our first guest. If you know Mike Rosoft, make sure you email us.
Make sure. Yeah. I mean, what are the chances that the 6 people watching this right now are the 6?
Listen, I've heard a theory that I've actually seen come to fruition, that you are 3 contacts away from any person in the world.
Wow.
3. Any person
I've heard
that
7.
you want to know.
Isn't it 7? Maybe it's 3 now. Maybe it's decreased. I always thought it was 7.
There's a lot of connections.
Isn't there the I think at one point there was something like that with Kevin Bacon. And it was like how many distances away are you from knowing somebody that knows Kevin Bacon?
Okay.
Don't know where it came from.
I don't either. Why Kevin Bacon?
I don't know. He was in Footloose, and that I don't know.
Listen, loose feet. What can you do?
So, anyways, here you are watching CockTalk, whatever you just saw before we started saying this. This is the first episode of CockTalk,
right?
And we figured, there's a whole lot to talk about with cocks.
There's just a lot around that term in general.
And first and foremost, we do own chickens. Yes. How many do we own between the 2 of us?
I have 16.
You have 16. Hopefully the great city that you live in doesn't find that out. Is there a limit? Do you have a limit, or is it?
Technically, I have not seen anything in the county laws that there is a limit. You just can't have roosters.
Okay, well, there you go.
I mean, is a cock in general, right?
Yes. Technically, you don't own a cock. You actually only own hens. There is a chicken book. I will find the name. Like the first chapter of this book, a huge section of it is devoted to telling you why you should call your roosters cocks, and that the pussification of America is the reason why we call them roosters instead of cocks, because people were offended by the word cock, so they went to this word rooster because it didn't offend as many people. But this particular author would say that this is the technical name. It's like being afraid to say the word penis and instead saying your willy. That's the rooster cock equivalent.
Okay.
So,
well, I feel like maybe on one of the future episodes we should just read that chapter.
Sure. Yeah. Why not?
It'll
be like Congress, when they're trying to filibuster, and be like, let's bring in this book. I brought this book that my granddaughter wrote, and she sold exactly 17 copies of. Here we go.
Here we go.
And they do. I mean, we have to look up the record for the longest filibuster, but it's like more than a day for sure.
I thought, isn't it like 2 or 3 days?
Maybe 2 or 3 days, yeah.
Goodness.
The other podcast that I have, I won't tell you the name because I don't want to shamelessly plug myself, but
I think you should.
It's called Overtime Hockey Talk, and we talk about hockey, which is very different than what we do here.
You talk about sticks there,
but I've got my computer, and so as we're talking, I can like look it up, but we don't have that. Like I suppose I could whip up my phone right now, but that's an audio only podcast, so I can really get away with it.
I almost put the computer out here in my laptop.
Maybe we'll have to. We just need a fact checker.
You know what? Next up, let's just make that a normal thing.
Let's just have your daughter come out here and be our fact checker.
That sounds good.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get a sticker on my laptop to cover up the apple, and I'll let it be a rooster instead.
So a sticker on the back to cover up the apple and a sticker on the front to cover up your webcam?
Yes.
You have one of those?
I don't actually.
I don't either. I don't know that I care.
I've got a webcam on my desktop. I've got one on my laptop. I've never been
one
kind
in
of
your
that
bedroom,
person.
one in the.
Well, I told my wife we wouldn't go into that.
Sorry.
Whoops.
I kind of
joke by the way.
When it comes to that, I feel like I don't really care enough because let's assume every single camera that I have, somebody's watching me through the camera of my computer. I
spend such little time on my laptop that like it doesn't.
Well,
they're gonna watch me through my phone.
I go on my laptop and I sit on my couch or I sit at like my countertop and I work.
This is what you're gonna see.
Yeah, right.
You're gonna see this. Is that newsworthy?
Yeah.
Is that worth your taxpayer dollars for the FBI or CIA to watch that angle of me? No, it's not.
I mean, I guess could they access it? Sure. Are they accessing it at all times? No. Does somebody like Mark Zuckerberg maybe have more of a reason to cover his? Probably.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. But for you at home, does it make sense? I mean,
probably.
You can do it, I guess, if you want to, but it seems like a waste of tape to me.
Yeah, I mean, I used it at my last job when I was doing a lot of studio production work. We would do, especially during COVID, when a lot of it was virtual broadcasts, there was a need for kind of an extra layer of security to kind of cover myself up so I don't actually come on screen during a 10,000 person webinar.
Oh, well, because you were actually hosting a webinar that you just weren't. You weren't the person talking, but you were the person who was doing the AV for it. So you don't want to accidentally pop up and take over everyone's screen or 100%. Something. And that's a much more practical. That's not so much a conspiracy as it is just
right. Yeah, if you're
smart.
doing it specifically for a privacy thing, if you think that that's how they're getting all of their information about you, well, and that's the only.
Do you cover up all the cameras on your phone?
Exactly. Do you have Ring cameras attached to your Wi-Fi? Anyone can access those.
Yeah, that's true. No, hopefully not anyone.
Well, I mean, anyone that knows what they're doing.
Yeah. And I mean, those Ring cameras, it's crazy because of course it can be a good thing, right? Like you don't want somebody to break into your house,
right?
Or you want to have, especially when you live in a place where somebody can drive past your street, pick packages up off your door, and then drive away really easily. Where I live, you are not a smart person if you come down my 300-foot driveway.
Yeah, your driveway's a mile and a half long.
Hey, I'm gonna see you. If I'm not home, my enormous dog is gonna scare the devil out of you.
Dog.
Amazon people, like sometimes they won't even get out of their truck, which I understand. She's a big Great Pyrenees, and she will bark at anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But she doesn't go up to anybody. She runs away if you try to go up to her. But I've had before where she's on the property line between our house and our neighbors. He's just out like, my neighbor's a nice guy. He's just out doing something to his car or whatever, shoveling snow. And she just stands on the mound in between our two houses and just barks.
Mm.
And I had to put a little collar on her. I actually have not shocked her. I just hit the beep button.
And it scares her?
And she shoots out of there. So I don't want to hit the... I'm happy. I don't ever want to have to hit...
You've had her since a puppy, too, so it's not like she's had it before.
No.
So there's no basis for her fear.
No basis. There's also a vibration, which is like basically like your phone getting a text. and because I've put it on and done the vibration, and it's just like it feels like your phone's vibrating in your pocket, except for it's around your neck, except for it's around your jugular. So it's enough to get a response out of the dog and help to train her. But anyways, that's besides the point. The two of us together. What do we want to do with the show? Let's talk a little bit.
First
what
of all,
we want to do.
I think that we need to talk about.
Oh shit! We
gotta make a cocktail.
We gotta make a cocktail.
We gotta start it off right because it's cold here in Michigan right now.
It is cold. I need something to warm my bones.
I feel like we need something that's to warm us up a little bit. So we are going to be actually making an old fashioned here. Might as well start it off with a classic, right? But we're going to do a little twist on it. A Black Walnut Old Fashioned.
I love it.
Which I'm really excited about. This is a newer twist for me. Had some friends of mine. Yeah, we're using was it
some Feed Brothers.
Feed Brothers. Black Walnut Bitters.
Ben, can you zoom in on this?
Yeah.
Damn it, Ben sucks at zooming.
Yeah,
He's fired.
Yeah, we're gonna fire him. We'll hire him before next episode though. But no, so an old fashioned is it's a classic. It's 100% a favorite of mine. If I go anywhere, that's kind of the way I judge a bar is by how well they do an old fashioned.
Yes. Yeah, if you're gonna load it up with simple syrup and oranges,
if there's too much simple syrup, it's gonna be too sweet. I think that I also have.
Or when you get one where it's very clearly that they poured the cherry syrup in there too, and there is a whole bunch of fizz.
Fizz?
You know, because you do put a splash of water in there, and some places do carbonated water.
That's ridiculous.
And it's and you can tell it's subtle, but you put carbonated water in here. I don't want this carbonated. Don't. Just don't. It's rude.
I'm kind of stuck up when it comes to beverages in general, specifically cocktails. I prefer straight whiskey. A lot of the times, neat whiskey on ice. I like to enjoy the natural flavor of the whiskey. However, I do really like old fashions.
And an old fashioned can draw out different flavor profiles from the whiskey.
Well, and even still, a lot of the times when old fashioned, I omit some ingredients. So maybe it's not a true old fashioned, but I don't always put a cherry in there. I rarely put simple syrup in it. I definitely don't do a splash of water. I let the ice is going to melt. It's going to add water to it. So I don't want to have too much water in there. But I do understand that a little bit of water does open up the aromatic flavors of the whiskey itself.
I think also some of it is like we don't care. We're making this drink for ourselves.
Sure.
In a bar, maybe they care a little more because you get a little more liquid in there. People drink a little bit more. Like remember that the way that somebody makes a drink is to get you to feel like you're paying $10, maybe $15, $20 for this drink. You want it to be a full glass. So, add a little splash of water. Water is a frick ton cheaper than whiskey. Yep. So you're right. It does draw out the flavor, but they are trying to get you to be satisfied with how much of a drink you got, at a lot of places. Maybe like a really fancy bar, they don't care. It's going to look like there's a small little wave inside of your cup and that's it. And that's a part of the appeal too. But at a generic bar, you're going and you're like, I want to actually feel like I have a drink. I don't want to. I want to feel like I'm being given a little extra.
Especially if you go to kind of a nicer bar where they have genuine mixologists, behind the counter, and you're paying $15, $17 for a drink.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous. Just go buy a bottle of something yourself and learn how to make it yourself.
Right. Especially when rarely are you going alone. So if you're paying $15 for a drink, you're paying $30 for the drinks, and that's only one drink a piece.
Exactly. Just buy a
You're
bottle.
Paying for the atmosphere, Joel.
100%.
But you could just come into your space and put up some lights, and you got an atmosphere.
I got an atmosphere. Yeah. We got an indoor fireplace.
That's true. Your fireplace is very sexy.
I do like my fireplace.
I feel like some magic could happen with that fireplace.
The only downside.
You're not trying to have another child on that fireplace?
No, that's shut down. That whole situation shut down. No more kids.
Well, thank you for letting us know what happened with your cock.
Yes. Well, that's kind of part of the show, right?
Yeah. It's true. We are going to find so many ways to talk about cock. It's going to be outrageous.
And yet none of it is probably how you were expecting it to go.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well, why don't we make this drink and then let's keep going.
Let's move some stuff around. Let's make this drink together. We'll have some drinks and then we'll talk about some other cocks.
Perfect. Let's go.
So yeah, we're gonna dive into making this Black Walnut Old Fashioned.
All right.
So if
you know what I'm gonna do?
What are we gonna do?
We're gonna start that over.
Okay.
I'm gonna take a video from my phone while we do it.
Okay.
So that we've got a little bit up close, and we could always cut to it if we want to.
Do you want to hand me the items over there then?
Sure.
And then I'll make the first one.
Yeah. Then it'll be that like first person kind of view a little bit. I don't know. Let's see, where should I shoot this from? I don't want to be in your shot.
But do you want to do that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna make the Black Walnut Old Fashioned here. So
I cannot wait.
This recipe in general. So I'm not as much of a rye kind of person as much as I am just a bourbon person. But this recipe in particular calls for rye. So one of the ryes that I do enjoy, this Elijah Craig rye, I think is pretty good. It's 94 proof. Elijah Craig, obviously, Kentucky.
Yes, the old Kentucky bourbon.
Kentucky bourbon. Kentucky whiskey. But we're going to do 3 ounces of rye.
2 shots for those counting at home.
That sounds good. That smells good. Let's see if I don't spill this all over our electrical equipment.
Show's done.
Show's done. All right. So we've got our rye. We've got our ice. Now, I'm sure I'm going to get completely roasted for the order in which I do these things. But
is there a proper order?
There is a proper order. I just don't care enough. We're going to do 4 dashes of the Black Walnut from Fee Brothers. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we do 4 dashes of orange bitters. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to do 1 Luxardo cherry. Oh, goodness. I personally like to try to get all of the syrup off of it so that way it doesn't overwhelm the drink itself. And then lastly, we're going to make sure that we have our orange peel. Now, from what I understand, it's very important to squeeze and get all of the juices out, running along the rim here. Once everything's in, we can mix this up. And that's it.
Look at that beautiful drink.
That's it. That's all yours, Mark.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm going to do it like this.
There you go. What do you think?
Oh, it's very smooth. I also get that little a little nostril flare there, that little tingly in the nostril that I love. And I feel 5 degrees warmer, and it has nothing to do with the heater that's sitting in between the two of us or the blanket that's on both of our laps. We were just over here
sharing a quilt, a handmade quilt. It's a friendship quilt.
Ben, get in here.
Ben. Damn it, Ben.
I don't know. I'm trying to think. Do I know anybody actually? Do I actually know anybody named Ben? I mean, I have.
I did in high school.
I have known a Ben or two.
But yeah, I don't. I'm gonna get ridiculed if somebody that I'm just not thinking about named Ben is just like, dude, what the hell, man? Dude,
you're in my favorites on my phone. How?
You were top 5 on my MySpace list for forever.
Yes. I remember. I believe it was a top 8 actually.
Well, you could change it.
Was there a 5 and then an 8?
Well,
I think it eventually went to a
10,
top 16 or
and then
maybe
just
top 12.
I remember people would message you and be like, "Bro, I'm not on your top list anymore. Like, what's going on?"
Oh, I remember the girl that I was dating. Like, I all of a sudden wasn't in her top 8 or something, and I remember
And you
being
knew it was
like,
coming. You knew the breakup was coming.
I was like, hey, what's going on? And she's just like, well, I just like want to, like, I've got like my best friends and my sister. I'm like, okay, I feel like, yeah, hold on.
It's really good. Cheers. First cocktail and CockTalk.
By the way, if you want to make your own, we will give you a little bit of instructions in the description there, so you can
absolutely
go and just see how much we put if you don't want to have to go back and watch again.
I'd also be really interested. So, like we were talking about earlier, I'm a huge fan of whiskey. I know you are too.
Yeah.
I love trying new whiskeys. So, if you have one that you enjoy, drop it down
Buy it
below
for
in
us.
comments. Send it to us. We'll review it for you. In case you didn't want to do it yourself, we'll do it for you. But no, I'm always interested in trying it out. And if we get enough requests on specific drinks, beverages, whiskeys in general, beer, like I'm a huge fan of beer, craft beer. Just let us know. Put it in the comments below the video or whatever, and we'll get it on the show and we'll try it.
Honestly, a good drink's a good drink. You can make. Yeah. I have had some of the best drinks I've ever had. Don't even have alcohol in them. So there's more than just whiskey drinks and vodka, and tequila.
Some people are doing dry January, so if there's a mocktail,
it's true.
You want us to try out?
Yeah.
We'll try mocktails.
I'm down. I'm not going dry, but I'll go dry for the episode.
Nope. No, I'll stay wet.
Even for the episode, I couldn't.
Even for the episode.
Send us a mocktail. We'll just drop some whiskey in there, and we'll mock you with it. It's that's a good drink. I'm trying to now that I've had a few sips of it, I've realized that I haven't even been thinking about the Black Walnut, and now I want to.
Do you notice it more when you think about it?
I don't even know what fucking Black Walnut tastes like. I'm not sure.
Now, if you want to smooth this out a little bit, because rye is a little harsher than most bourbons. Bourbons are usually sweeter. You can add simple syrup to it.
Yeah, it does have a little, like, especially the aftertaste is a little more bitter than especially an old fashioned that usually we made it the proper way with just the peel, but a lot of people just take the orange and squeeze some of the orange in there too, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. Not everybody loves the bitter taste of whiskey. I really like bitter things. Like the more bitter, the better.
It's better.
All right. Well, we're gonna keep on sipping our cocktail. Hopefully, if you're drinking along with us, we'll cheers to you too.
Cheers to you.
All right. I guess we can keep talking about the why behind this podcast, because I feel like it sort of started off. Well, how many times do you think I asked you to start a podcast?
At least 100 times. It's
might not be an exaggeration.
I don't think it is. And it had nothing to do with me not wanting to have fun or do something.
No.
Yeah. It's simply the fact of, like, I'm not really passionate about much.
And that's what you kept telling me, that you didn't have anything to say.
Yeah.
And I said, I love listening to you talk about
But usually we're inebriated when we talk and have conversations together. So of course you love it.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. I'm usually the one that's more drunk at the party, that's for sure.
You've become a classier drunk in your 30s.
Oh, well, thank you. You've established
that happens.
Better reputation.
That is a real thing. If you are in your 30s, tell me that's true. Like, you definitely look back to your 20s and you go, I was a bad drunk. Like, but maybe not bad. You can still be really fun, but, like, I think you start to think about, well, I want to pace myself a little more. Like, I want to enjoy the night. There's things that come with that.
So
maturity.
I think for me,
still fun to get
personally, growing up in a very conservative home, there was not alcohol in the home. Like there's some past.
Do you mean conservative, like staunch voters of George Bush and Ronald Reagan, or conservative?
I don't know about Reagan, but Bush, yes, 100%.
George H.W. or George W.
I would probably say both.
Okay, all right. So really bummed when Bill Clinton won.
Oh yeah. I remember that as a kid for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, see, I didn't live in the U.S. I'm originally born in Toronto. I am American though, because I shed my Canadian citizenship like a freaking bad COVID case.
But you're a huge fan of Trudeau, right?
Big fan. Love the guy. Like, that's why I keep the camera on my laptop open so that he can see me.
Get the most
I'm hoping that
sure.
that he sees me. So I grew up there. So I didn't move here until 1995, and by that point it was like a president. And also I was 9 years old. So you're like, a president, okay? And my parents couldn't vote. We were Canadian. It was actually Canadian until 2016. I think it was early 2016 when I officially got my citizenship. Long story. It's freaking crazy. Like, we came here legally, blah, 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 blah. Of course we came here legally. And like my dad got a job sponsored by a visa, all this stuff. In 2006, got a green card because 9/11 was, we were about to get a green card. Then 9/11 happened and they were like,
nobody.
No. And we're like, look at, and they still it slowed the process down, right? And probably as it should have at the time. It was a little freaky, but took to 2006, and then once you have your green card, then I was able to work. So I actually was 20 years old when I was legally allowed to get a job.
Wow!
Like a lot of my friends, they got their first job when they were 16. Like they could drive and then they got a job. Kind of thing. I was a junior in college when it became legal for me to get a job. Now I had jobs. Right. I worked for people under the table, or like I babysat kids. Like I did whatever I needed to do to make a little bit of extra scratch. But so didn't even get my green card. And then you have to be a citizen for, I think it's like 7 years or something like that. You have to be a citizen for a certain, or you have to have a green card for a certain amount of time. Maybe it's 5 before you can become a citizen. And I think by the time I was able to, I was like, it's going to cost me how many hundreds of dollars to become a citizen? Like, I'll just keep on riding out my green card. Yeah. And then it was kind of like, I want to vote in this election. So
which election was it that you?
This was the 2016 election.
2016. Yeah. Okay. Yes. It's a very pivotal election.
Very pivotal. Yes. Very interesting election indeed. Definitely a pretty crazy one for it to be your first one you can vote in. I think probably in 2012 was when I started to go, I think I want to vote, but maybe it was like too early, or it was right around the time when I could have gotten a citizenship. So I just kind of, I don't know, I was like 26 years old. So I just didn't want to do it on my own maybe. And then eventually I did.
I didn't vote for the first time until I was 30 years old.
So the last
last election.
2020.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. 2020 was the first time that I ever voted. And I actually got a lot of flack for that, for, being as old as I was and have never voted before. I was never even a registered voter. And a lot of the flack came from, well, this is your duty as an American. And I was like, well, this is where I disagree. I think each American has the right to vote. Yeah. But not every American has to vote.
Sure. Well, it's your right to not vote.
Exactly. And that was my argument. If you don't want to vote and that's not something you want to consume yourself with, then that's not something I want to be a part of.
Plus you're 20. I mean, I guess you probably could have technically voted when you were 18, so you could have voted in what would that be, the 2008?
Yes.
Yeah. So you could have voted in the first election that elected Obama.
Yeah.
So you could have voted in that. But you're 18. You're kind of like, I think anything. A lot of us had the same attitude of, I don't care about politics, so I'm not going to vote.
Well, and it's not even that not only did I not care about it, but I had such a bad taste in my mouth from people I hung out with growing up who were so over the top opinionated with politics in general and I didn't know anything. And
it's almost easier to just go like, I'm not going to have an opinion about this because it's just too messy.
100%.
And you're 18, there are certainly 18-year-olds who understand the complexities of an election. Sure. But there are a lot who just go, I just want to hang out with my friends. I'm going to go to college, have a great time. I hope I get a good education, and I hope I meet a person that I connect with and can find happiness, and that's kind of all you're concerned about, just having fun and meeting people and being social and maybe eventually getting a job. Mm-hmm. You're going to college or you're not, and you're just I'm just going to make money, whatever it is. That's what you're worried about. You're really worried about you. And then how old were you when you had your first kid? 24?
Yeah, I think so.
22, 23, something like
that? Because we got married when I was 23. So
yeah, okay.
We had our first kid at 24.
Okay. Yeah, didn't waste any time.
No.
Yeah.
Nope. We got a cat pretty early on, and then it was just like, well, this isn't quite cutting it.
Hey.
Dogs were too expensive, so I was
yeah.
So why not go for a kid? That's least expensive, right?
So, yeah, that's pussy all around, I guess. And honestly, that's where then you have a kid, and then you start going, what about the world? What am I going to leave this person with? And even if you're like, I feel like I'm one in a freaking droplets in the ocean for my vote, whatever.
Sure.
There's still something to be said about having your voice heard, whether or not maybe elections have been stolen or like things have happened that are shady. That is like, it's outside of anyone's control, whether it happened or not. There's not much you can do about what, like, I can't impact how you vote, but I can go and vote, and like that's on my conscience. Well, that's something that sometimes you feel like I'm at least doing something. And also on the local level, you're making a decent impact. If you, like, I live in a place where only like 5,000 people vote.
Wow.
So my vote, it's still
1%
of a 1% of a 1%, but it like, I've seen some of these, and a lot of people don't even vote on the smaller ticket items.
Okay.
They just vote, like, they go in, they vote for the president. Or like that particular election has a lot of people, but I've seen some of them where, it's the in-between years. They still have an election because they're voting for some little, like, an expense that they're trying to, a millage or adding something. You go in and I look at the results and it's like 789 to 523.
Wow.
Like that's directly impacting you.
Yeah.
When they say, you're only going to pay an extra like $20 per 100,000 that you own, of your property tax. I'm like, that's still potentially it's hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars over the course of the life of me owning my home.
Exactly. That it adds up exponentially. Yeah. But I think you kind of bring up an interesting point though, is that like, hey, my vote on a larger scale, I feel like it's really not impacting anything. And that's how my perception of politics in general is that because of the Electoral College, because of, and how individual votes are counted and how they're utilized in an election, is like, what is my one single vote doing for this? And then when I actually got into voting and how my political views align more of a libertarian than anything, it's like, okay, well, if I vote for a libertarian party, everyone told me, hey, that's a wasted vote. Go vote for a Republican or Democrat. Well, it's like, okay, well, if I'm truly voting because I believe it's the right thing to do, and I have to vote how
like
I feel
voting is more
important.
of a moral
exactly, and it's not just like, okay, yeah, sure, I could go vote Democratic or Republic based on like what I'm most aligned with. But at the end of the day, I'm still voting against what I believe because of X reasons. So if I vote Libertarian, then I have a wasted vote. If I don't vote at all, it's a wasted vote. But if I vote for Republican or Democrat, I go against how I believe. So it's like, there's no right answer for someone like me, right?
Yeah, so, it's a hard balance because you don't want to waste, you don't want to feel like you're wasting something, but then you have to sit back and you really have to consider how much is a vote worth. Like, I know nobody, like, all right, if you go vote for the Green Party, it's not as if the Green Party gets money for every vote that they receive. But does it help to legitimize a party? I think that it does. If you particularly align with someone else other than Democrat, Republican, you can have an impact in the way that people perceive that party if you're willing to do that. Let's be honest. There's plenty of other countries. I'll say, I grew up in Canada. I'm not saying anything. I think Canada has a socialist government and they're very open about that, and I disagree with it. Don't like it. But I will say that in the parliamentary system, you've got and UK is the same way. You have a lot more parties. You've got 6 parties in Canada that are maybe not, maybe it's like 3 or 4 that are legitimate, have a legitimate chance of retaining the prime ministership, whatever it's called. But you've got 6 parties that have a legitimate voice, and those party votes impact the way other parties vote, because in order to get the majority, they need the votes of this part, the Bloc or the I can't off the top of my head. I can't think of all the parties. I know there's a conservative, there's a liberal party in Canada, there's the Bloc, there's a few other ones, and they need each other in order to pass laws because they rarely have the majority. Like rarely is the one party with the prime minister has the majority. So they need to work with other parties who have other interests. So you get a more broad interest scope with more parties. Now I disagree with. I don't think that their form of government is as effective, but I think that having more parties is actually the way the founders saw things going. I think, I can't tell you which founder it was, especially as this Black Walnut begins to set in. But I haven't
really eaten today either, so
really
this
haven't.
is probably not a good idea. But at the same time, it's a great idea.
Yes. I do know that they have there are quotes of founders saying like if it ever gets to where there's only two parties, we're in trouble. And I mean that's how it's been for 100 years plus.
And that's the biggest part. Multiple conversations I had leading up to the last election of who I was going to vote for, why I was going to vote, why a libertarian is a wasted vote. And there are people that like I've watched that are friends of mine, that acquaintances I know, that I respect their political opinions in a lot of ways. Do I agree with all of them? No, but I respect their dedication to research and understanding their points of view. And that we had multiple conversations with people that I was like, this is how I want to vote, and this is how I feel like is right for me to vote. And they're like, you can absolutely do that, but it's a waste, and here's why. And then go back to the moral voting thing like we talked about. But
if you believe voting is a moral, like either moral or immoral, whether you do it or not, whether you vote for the right person, that's
right. But at the end of the day, they're like, hey, everyone said the same thing at the end of it, regardless of their political background. Whether I was talking with libertarians that like, I'm not voting libertarian. And it's like, why? And it's because they'll never win. Well, not with that attitude. You know what I mean? Like, it's a joke, but
not with that attitude, young man.
It's the same. It's a joke, but at the same time, it's like if everyone says, "Hey, there's a problem with the two-party system," but nobody votes differently than a two-party system, there will always be a problem with a two-party system. So, am I going to vote my conscience and say I'm against the two-party system? I'm voting for a third party because there should be more parties represented, but that's a wasted vote. So there's like this huge contradiction, and that in itself, that whole situation almost put me off from not voting at all from the past election. Now we're going into the new election.
It sounds like it put you off voting for several elections prior to that one, right?
Exactly. I mean, even going into this next election, right? Like we've got a very pivotal election coming up where I think personally it's already been decided by elites, by I think the American people in general. Whether or not it's going to be an easy or peaceful election is something completely different. But
this year is going to be really fun. I mean, we're going to hit on all that as we continue to do this show.
We've got
this show is going to be fun. Like we definitely want to have fun. I mean, we're drinking Black Walnut Old Fashions. Unbelievable. Tastes delicious. It actually tastes better as I go. Don't know why.
You might need another one.
Yes, I do know why.
You might need another one.
I have to drive home.
Debatable.
Yes. Yeah. My wife will be super pumped if I spend the night here. Joel and I have been going on, I said on this board, we're recording the audio. I said we had 400 hours of audio potential on there. If I stay here for 400 hours, it's going to be a big problem.
It's going to be a big project for Ben to edit.
Yeah. For Ben? What if we recorded the longest podcast ever?
I wonder. Hold on, we're gonna look up the.
We're gonna look
right
it
now.
up.
What's the longest podcast ever recorded?
That's amazing. And not just like we're doing a live feed and then we stick it in as a podcast. No, an actual podcast. It is going to be a crazy year, but it's also a super. Oh, you found it.
A team of podcast fanatics and experts planned and carried out what can only be described as the podcast marathon, recorded a total of 153 hours of content without any breaks. And it was the Dutch.
The Dutch.
Listen, they've got, universal health care, one of the happiest countries in the world ranked. They've got nothing else better to do. Except, you know what? Let's just talk about how
they don't even have to work. They can just.
That's it.
Like they don't work. Sorry if you're Dutch.
Listen.
Watching our show. How many Dutch people are watching our show? Probably nil.
Probably zero.
You know what, though? My hockey podcast, I'm not kidding you. I have this group of Australians that listen to our podcast. And they tell me they like it. I don't know why. But I mean, it's crazy. It's cool. I mean, it's the world we live in. Like, you know, we can make a video here in Michigan, and someone in Australia watches it, and they go, "Oh yeah, that's cool," and they share it with somebody else. And
it's really cool.
Neat.
I think, though, one thing that we really need to discuss before we wrap up a podcast is specifically, I know we started to touch on it multiple times, and then we get sidetracked, and that's probably going to be a bulk majority of all the content we produce is 100% tangents into other things, and we have a structure. There's an outline and documentation.
Joel made us an outline,
and I think we've touched on the old fashioned, and that was it. Out of all of these papers, but we definitely need to discuss what can people expect with this podcast. What are we going to be talking about, and then also some of the basics of why you and I both individually. Separately and now kind of conjoined, started homesteading.
Yeah,
talking about not only just chickens in general, but
cocks.
How cocks are a gateway drug.
Oh, sure, yeah, they absolutely are.
And kind of all the reasons as to why we're doing this. Both you and I are in our 30s, married with two girls. So we have a lot of similarities.
Are they the same distance apart too?
Mine's 4 and 7.
Mine are okay. So yours are 3. Mine are about 2 and 5 months apart. Pretty close. Basically living the same life.
Both of our wives have the same name, so that's
just
weird.
I took a lot longer to have kids than you did. You had your first kid at 23. I had my first kid at 34. Was I 34? 2020. How old was I? I was 34. Yeah, 34.
Wow.
Yeah, 34. Well, I got divorced.
Right, you had a dry run.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I had a dry run.
But no, I mean, I think we both have had a lot of conversations together about our views, and we don't always align.
No,
which I really like. About
and we definitely didn't align hardly at all when we met.
Oh, 100%.
And we maybe have found each other in different areas in the middle. We found each other. Not that way.
in our conversations about cock, we found each other.
That's true.
But I really think that's really cool.
I don't think I've ever seen your cock before.
I can't confirm that you have.
I played hockey, so there was a lot of guys that'd be like, "Oh, I've seen his."
I think that's sports in general.
Yeah,
though,
sports.
Right?
Yeah. One day I used to work at a sports radio station, and there was a particular player. I was looking for him to get an interview. I would go into the locker rooms and for a hockey team, like pro hockey, and I said, I need to get this guy's autograph. That's why I'm not named. I'm not telling you who it is. I was looking for this guy. It really wasn't that cool. I made $15 an hour. I was looking for this guy, and I went. I looked at another reporter, and I said, "Hey, have you seen this guy somewhere?" I said his name. Damn it, the Black Walnut, dude. It's what is it about that nut? I don't know.
It's a good nut.
I said, "Have you seen him anywhere?" And I literally turned. It was, I mean, if this could have been a movie, it was a movie. I turned. The only thing I saw was this guy's dick.
Oh no!
And I looked up because he was coming out of the shower, and I looked up. Most of these guys come out. They know women are going to be in there. They're pretty respectful. And I guess maybe this guy didn't care. Maybe he forgot his shower, his towel. I don't know. He came out just flying high. He was feeling good about himself. And no,
his
not
flag
that.
Was
okay,
flying?
No, he was soft.
He was half-mast.
He was not. It was. But I remember looking. The first thing I saw was his dick.
Oh.
And I looked up, and I went. I just looked at Joe Thor. This guy's dick.
There we go again.
There it is. I did not mean to.
I don't know hockey players, but I'm gonna look this guy up afterwards.
I doubt you'll find a picture of his dick. But anyways, that's yeah. So why did I talk about that?
I don't know.
That was the time when I saw someone's dick. I don't know.
Saw that guy's dick.
Saw that guy's dick. That was the first penis I ever saw. No.
Well, that's a good story. I don't know where we go from there.
Yeah, we might need to edit that one out. I don't know.
No,
it's fine if we do.
Definitely not.
It's fine if we do. Fine if that one shows up in like 2027 after we've been doing this for a while.
Ben, leave that in there. Listen, if there was ever a moment where I felt like this podcast was going to be like Two Bears, One Cave kind of thing, is that the name of the podcast?
Two Bears, One Cave?
Two Bears, two. What's the one? Oh, fuck, I don't know.
You mean Two Girls, One Tub?
No. Two.
Oh, there's an actual podcast, Two
Bears, One Cave.
Huh.
Yeah, that's the right podcast.
Oh, cool.
Okay, don't
nice.
make fun of me.
Nice, never heard of it.
Yeah. Bert Kirshner's podcast. That's what it is. You don't know who that is, do
No,
you?
I don't.
Oh,
That's
okay.
okay.
Well, I don't even listen to the podcast, but my friends send me the clips of their podcast all the time. I think it's really funny, but it's super raunchy, so it's like, this is not something I'm probably going to watch.
Yeah.
Here I am making a raunchy podcast.
Well, it's raunchy like in like a funny way, but it's
wholesome way.
I feel like it's not super uncomfortable because we actually are talking about rooster chicken
most of the
kind
time.
of vibe. We also plan on. So I think the basis for this came from the fact that what did it all start with? We've got other people who are going to be on the podcast with us.
Yes.
It's often in a world where nobody is getting paid yet because we're going to destroy this thing. It's going to blow up.
Great.
We're going to do great. We're going to do big things with this podcast. But right now we're working, this is something that we're doing because we're passionate about it.
100%.
We want to help to teach people how to do a whole bunch of things, and I think that that's where a lot of this comes from. We were joking around like, what if we did a cock talk? And we talked about chickens, and we talked about home improvement because, that white stuff's called cock.
Guns?
And guns. Yeah, you cock your gun.
I'm a huge gun fan.
You make cocktails. Like the word cock's in a lot of things, and we thought it was fun, and we had a little joyride, I think.
I had a lot of guns at one point, and then I lost them all in a boating accident. So I don't have any more. Wow. It's unfortunate. But
is this real?
Yes.
Did that just go over my head?
It's real. But no, we're going to talk very heavily about homesteading. I feel like, like you said earlier.
But not like weird homesteading. I feel like there's a certain level of homesteading where you're like.
I think there's a balance of preparation and homesteading and being self-sufficient.
Like not everybody can live off the grid, right?
No, as much as I would love to. And I
as
hope to get
sexy
there
as
one day.
It sounds.
I legitimately hope to get to there one day.
I think I would like to have a place off the grid, but I don't necessarily want to live permanently off the grid.
No, that makes more sense.
Like I also love people, and I think that a lot of the people that go, oh, I want to live off the grid, they're like my wife. My wife, and maybe you guys are probably similar. You're like, I love my family, I love my friends, but like I could do without everybody else sometimes.
I legitimately had a conversation with my father, and he is 100% a redneck. And he told me, he said, if I had the money and I would buy 2,000 acres in the middle of Montana, and I would put my house right in the middle, and I would never talk to another soul again. And I thought that was the weirdest thing. I was like, Dad, like you've got all these other things. What about family? Like that's kind of rude, Dad. But then I started
dick thing to say, Dad.
Exactly. And then I thought about it more and more, and I'd be like, it kind of sounds amazing. I don't know. I think more so I would enjoy a family compound in the middle of 2,000 acres where it's like, hey, I've got my sister, I've got my nephews, I've got my parents, like all
You've
these
got
things.
Me.
Like I got you. I know at least
just
how to
me.
Get to you.
I'm only allowed.
Yeah, none of your family. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, Katie. You can come along too. It's fine. No, but like I think though that we're gonna talk about homesteading. Yeah. We're gonna talk about being self-sufficient under specifically the guideline of like not outsourcing your life to the government.
Yeah.
Right? Like being able to
or like big industries or
Exactly. Like being able to look at what are things that I can do myself? What are things I can control myself? Things that I can be self-sufficient with. And enjoying those things. I can't tell you the past couple years of diving into this whole homesteading thing of fresh made bread from our friends fresh eggs regularly, having venison and meats that you know where they came from. You know the people that shot and killed these deer and their processing and all of that stuff. Being able to support local farmers with quarter or half cows and and sticking them in the freezer and being able to consume that meat in general, I think is huge. I think it's not only beneficial for our local economy, right, but also for being able to be sustainable individually.
And supporting the other people who have the same mindset, right? Like if you're a farmer and you're selling Joe Schmo a quarter cow, you have the same mindset as us. You need to make money. We all need to make money.
Right.
That's how you've chosen to make money. But you chose to make money in a way that like just sustains people, and you're avoiding so much of the garbage that goes into, like, you go and buy ground meat from Kroger, right? Like from your local grocery store.
Right.
You are there's likely that cow came from Brazil. That's kind of like the new trend is a lot of those cows are coming from Brazil, where they have a lot less regulation on how that cow is processed. Likely there's anywhere from 4 to 8 cows inside of your little pound of ground meat. So that's a lot of different cows. Thanks. There's a lot of different like potential things that could go wrong there. And when you buy from a local farmer, you know that cow, that's one cow. You can name all the meat in your freezer. One of my buddies named what did he name his cow? He always says, "Oh yeah, that's Bertha," or whatever her name was. He's like, "We're having Bertha tonight again." Like, and it is true. Like, that one animal sustains your family for months,
right?
And I think that's also it's a different way to think about your food. It's a different way to think about the way that you're living.
I think what's really going to be great about this podcast, though, is that you and I are both learning, because we're both relatively new to this kind of stuff, right? Within the past couple of years, we dive into the homesteading things. We've gotten livestock and animals and different things like that. We're going to continue to grow. Our farms are going to continue to grow. Yep. We just started selling eggs. You have your own farm. You have a flower farm. We have a flower farm here in Farmington Hills, Michigan,
which is an amazing model for somebody that lives in the city, loves to create and like grow, but maybe doesn't have the room to go crazy with crops, but you can go crazy with flowers, which is super lucrative and like beautiful and fun. And like watching your wife do what she does with that is just like, it's a creative process that blows my mind. I can't do that.
No, I mean, it's so funny to like talk with her too and be like, "Oh, this is a really, really pretty flower. You've got a couple of these like this." And she's like, "Actually, no, these are 5 different flowers, and here's all the scientific names." And it was like, "Oh shit, I'm sorry for being such an idiot." But it's more only because I'm ignorant. 100%, but she has just got the mindset for it. But I think it's really cool because we're gonna grow along with this podcast. We're gonna expand. We're gonna try new things, and then you're gonna be able to experience our absolute failures on so many different things. Because I think that's one thing you and I are not afraid to do, is to fail.
No, I fail pretty much like 95% of the time. I think 100%. I fail, but I try a lot of shit, so it ends up looking like I do decent.
Right.
And I like this year I'm going to do meat birds. So that's like
I'm very excited about that.
Journey, jump in.
Because I'm going to be able to taste them and tell you if they're absolute shit or not.
Yeah, hopefully they're not. But yeah, I mean, meat birds, cool, and just trying to grow a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, you guys grew tons of crops anyway. Like, even though you're in the city, it's actually crazy. Like, if you could see their backyard, which I'm sure we can find a way to show them your backyard.
Figure it out.
You would go, oh, like, yeah, you don't live on like you don't have a little like 10 by 10 backyard, a little tiny thing, but you have a good sized backyard, but you are doing something with it, as opposed to a lot of people that live in the city, live in the suburbs. I guess you live in the suburbs and just have a nice green grassed backyard, and you still have lots of space to
It's so funny you mentioned that, though, because like our neighbors are super particular about the yard. He's got all of the cross lines and the checkered board lines.
I'm gonna make my lawn like a golf course.
Listen, he's like, he's like, this is just something I like to do, and I truly believe him. But at the same time, if you look at my backyard, it's an absolute mess. But during the summer, it looks incredible because there are so many flowers that are 6-8 feet tall, and you just can go into the garden and be consumed by it.
Who gives a crap what your backyard looks like in January? No one's backyard looks good. It's either brown or it's just dirt, right? Like,
yep. At least here in the north.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah, in the south it's a little different, or in other places in the world. But in the winter time, generally things are dead, and that's okay.
Well, the basis, like you were saying, is like you're putting the land to use, right? Like you're not just, hey, I have a green yard, look at me. It's I'm producing something. I'm being self-sufficient in a way. Like we were able to grow an extensive amount of like green peppers and cabbage and
I had them and they were delicious.
And broccoli, like all of those things. Like,
and we had a stupid amount of tomatoes. Like,
yes,
I'm not a horticulturalist. I am like, I much rather deal with the animals. I like the animals. Honestly, I don't mind culling, which means killing, but I'm just gonna from now on I'll say culling. Now that you know, it's an interesting. I won't say it's enjoyable, but it is a blessing when you go. You know what? I need to cull some of these roosters. Like I'll go and it's a lot cheaper to buy a bunch of chickens that are not sexed, so you don't know whether or not you're getting hens or cocks. We're going to call them cocks because I'm going to look up that freaking lady's name here.
You look it up.
But it's a lot more enjoyable to just get, like, you just get a whole bunch of them, you see what happens, and occasionally you end up with, like, way too many roosters. And roosters, like we'll say, like, roosters are like that 19-year-old boy that you knew that... God. Like went to a restaurant and had to masturbate into a urinal because they're just so goddamn horny they don't know what to do with themselves. That is a rooster.
I'm upset that that's an accurate depiction of a rooster.
That is a rooster. They just they bang everything, and they're also super into BDSM. Like I have like if I have too many roosters, this is how I know I have too many roosters. Is some of the hens are bald. Like those they are chokers. Like,
listen,
it's ridiculous. And I get rid of the roosters, and all of a sudden, they have these beautiful,
like all of mine, because I don't have any.
Yeah, roosters. You don't have any roosters. Yeah, but
cocks.
But when you have the right amount, it's okay. They actually chickens are unbelievable. You get one rooster can hop on up to 30 a day, I think, but generally it's around 10 to 15. So I've got 38.
The stamina.
And I have 3 roosters. One of them is a funny rooster who, like, I don't know what happened to its leg. It didn't develop right or something, but it has like a hop, so it hops everywhere. It's cool. I don't know how much action that guy gets because the other 2 are a little bit more beefy and
they're probably quicker.
True. But
do you call him Nemo? Or?
So I think I have 3. I have three roosters. I have 3 roosters for about 35 hens. But when there's too many, it just gets ridiculous. But you have to kill those roosters, and what are you going to do with them? You try to find a use for the meat, right? Yeah. And it's weird at first because of the methods. Is just, I mean, you're killing something, and that's not something that like I was raised to do. Like I'd never killed anything before other than a bug, and when you do it the first time, it's not as if you're like yeah. But you kill it, you like, I don't know, I thank it. I'm like, hey, thank you. You're going to give me meat.
Yeah.
Or you're going to give my animals some food, like my dogs. I cut the leg. This is weird. I don't know how we're going on. I take the legs. You have to cut the legs off or the feet. But actually the feet are amazing for animals because they're full of, essentially, it's the joints, right? So like all the minerals and all the good stuff that's in a joint, those are in chicken feet. So you give those to your dogs, and if your dog has any kind of like arthritis or any kind of just like creaky joints, sometimes they limp. My one dog was, she's a Great Pyrenees. They grow really fast. You almost have to try to help them to not grow quickly. Wow. And they hit these stages of growing pains. A lot of bigger dog breeds get these like growing pains where all of a sudden they're just like limping. She'd be limping. I toss her a chicken foot, and 12 hours later, good to go, running around.
Interesting.
And it's amazing what that does. And so you're using the chicken to help your animals, who that particular dog is the livestock guardian dog of those chickens. So the chickens that I have to kill, I take their feet and I give them to the dog. The dog is more healthy. I take the meat and my family eats the meat. And like, you can use it for so many things. And then I also take the meat and I give it to the dog as well. Like, it's amazing how that whole ecosystem works.
Yeah.
And it works best with people.
Yes.
Like, I think that's maybe the problem with a lot of, like, I don't know how, like, an animal lover, a planet lover, is that it's almost like they have this attitude that everything works better if people aren't here. But actually, everything works better with people working to sustain the land, the animals, and like sustain this ecosystem. 100%. We are freaking smart.
Yes.
I believe God designed us that way. And I think that left to its own devices, yes, it will thrive, but I think that we can do it better as long as that's our attitude and isn't just like, what can I do for me? Let's tear down all these trees and build a big house.
Yeah, 100%. I think that there is definitely an ecosystem that can be not only built, but then maintained in a healthy way to make sure that everyone is thriving and, kind of operating inside of their role as what they were created to do. And I think a lot of that has to go back to kind of your foundational belief system of, did we believe that things were put on this earth for man to have dominion over it, or was it put on this earth to have its own sort of dominion and its own rights? That's different. Everyone has their own opinions, and that's fine. But I think that it basically comes down to when you're kind of in that process of, hey, I'm breeding chickens, I'm breeding cows or goats or whatever, and they have a specific purpose. It's kind of like a tool to be used, and as long as you do it properly, everything can be used for its own glory as well, and be used in a way that makes sense. So 100% for it. I'm really excited to talk more about this, dive in to more about this. We've got quite a few people that are going to be coming on the podcast over the next. There
was maybe like 6 people who were sitting there and had this idea. I actually was not. Now I definitely have been asking you to do a podcast for probably since 2018, probably.
Yes.
So 6 years in the make. Have I known you for? Let's see. I would have met you in.
Oh my God.
It was 2017, like summer 2017 is when I would have met you.
Because I've been here 9 years. We're coming up on 9 years in Michigan.
Yeah, it was 2017 was when we started going to the same church together. Was when I started going to the same church that you were at, and that's where we found each other.
We found each other.
But we weren't really friends until like maybe
it took a little bit,
like a year or so after.
Yeah, I don't think it took that long.
It took a year. Well, 2017. We'll say 2017, which is, we're going on 7 years, which is madness to think about, because when you're 37 years old and you've got all these friends in college and then you're not friends with them anymore. And you're like, I've been friends with that guy for so long, 5 years, 4 years. In high school, I was friends with those people for 5 years, 4 years. And you're like, 7 years. And like, it also makes me feel old.
Yeah, no, I get it. But we're gonna have so much to talk about, because we're gonna have a lot of people on the podcast, and we're gonna have a lot of different backgrounds, because we have people coming in that are blue collar job backgrounds. So we'll talk about the caulk side of CockTalk, right?
100%. And that's a huge part of homesteading, is like, if you can't do this stuff, you're by yourself, then you're in big trouble. And yes, there are millions of YouTube videos for almost any problem you run into. There's definitely a YouTube video, but between the two of us and other guys that'll come on this show have tremendous experience with DIY projects. 100%. So you can toss us those questions.
We have people coming on that own their own business specifically for home improvement, for drywall, for carpentry, all these things that we can actually pull on experts in their field to ask them questions. So if you have questions specifically about home improvement and things like that, or homesteading, please let us know. We would love to have kind of that conversation inside of the podcast and be able to answer those questions from listeners. I think that's a big part of what we're trying to build here, is a community of people that are able to have these conversations together, answer questions live, to go through things, to be able to help kind of build everyone up, right? Like,
and have a whole lot of fun talking about cock.
That's the biggest part. Yes. Talking about cock, that's the biggest part. But I'm really excited. I appreciate kind of like all of our time, your time, especially coming out here. We're going to talk more about this in future episodes. I'm really excited to record future episodes about this. So if there's anything that you want to know about, you want to learn about, cocktails that you want us to make, or whiskeys or beers that you want us to review, we're happy to do so. I have absolutely zero expertise on the matter, but I'm happy to do it anyway.
But you know what? Well, you know what we also have? We also have a lot of people with like who own small business. You and I both own small business, like a small business. We both have owned other small businesses too. Yep. Between the group of us that are going to be coming on here, hundreds of thousands of dollars have been made.
Absolutely.
With our own small businesses.
Absolutely.
And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to bring other people on. We're going to have a lot of fun. Hopefully, growing together, growing with you, becoming more self-sufficient. But also in that self-sufficiency, it's relying on the right people. And I really think that's kind of that's the issue with our world today, is that we really rely on the wrong people. We rely on these faceless people, right? Like
100%.
Who gives you your food? You have no idea. Who gives you? Where do you get your water from? You have no idea. Who like so many of the aspects of your life, you have no idea where it came from. You live your life cluelessly, and I totally understand. I've been there. I lived my life without ever thinking about where my water came from, where my 100%. Food came from, where my money was really coming from, where I was spending my money, how I was spending my money. Like so many of these things that I just put the blinders on and did what I was told. And we want to kind of shatter some of those mindsets and really grow with you, grow together in creating a mindset, all under the banner of CockTalk, because it's funny. It's funny. It's a way to I think have fun with this, but a lot of we're not just dicking around.
We definitely want to add some value here. So if this is something that's of interest to you, this overall concept, like, please follow, like, share with people that you feel like may also kind of feel this way as well. Even if you just like, hey, I got nothing else better to do on an afternoon than sip a cocktail and listen to some people that don't know what they're doing talk about a bunch of things. That's fun too.
Also, we have been married for a long time. That's a true skill. There's so many things. See, this is what I was trying to tell Joel.
And me and my wife have been married a long time.
Yeah,
we have not been married a long time.
We've only been married for like 6 months now. No. This is, it's just, I think this is me talking to you actually, is that at some point you told me that you didn't know what to talk about.
Yeah.
Or like you didn't think you had anything to say.
Yeah.
And that is 100%. Like beyond that might be the dumbest thing you've ever said, because you have so much to say. I've
said a lot of dumb stuff, so I don't know.
But you have so much to offer people. I was funny because I was telling my wife as I left here to record this, which when I left, she was a little, sometimes you leave your family. It's a Sunday afternoon, you leave your family and you're kind of like, all right, yeah, like you can go do this thing, but like I'm a little annoyed because this is the weekend and it's the time we get to spend 100%. Together. I get it. I totally get it. Also, sometimes it's funny. I actually went to school for communications. I can be a horrible communicator. In my personal relationships, I feel like I'm really good.
Well, you're a man, so
professionally good at communicating. Interpersonally, garbage,
trash,
just trash. No, I've learned a lot
the same way
about those things. But yeah, it's where was I going? Oh, just that I said, Kate, if there's like one person in my life that I know knows how to actually put things into action, it's you. Oh. So you want to learn how to put things in action. Well, this guy is the guy to watch. That is true. I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. That is absolutely true. This guy says he's going to do something, it's going to happen. So, and it's going to actually happen well. Like I can do a lot of things, but is it going to happen really well?
That's why I told you no so many times to a podcast. It's like I don't have the passion or the bandwidth or whatever. Like if I'm going to do something, I'm going to fucking do it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like we're going to fucking do it.
Yeah, fucking do it. I can do it.
This podcast will contain profanity, so if you don't like that, shut it off now.
Yeah, maybe we can. What if we release 2 episodes, and one didn't have profanity, but the whole thing was just a beep the entire way through?
That would have to be it, because I like to swear. I like to swear a lot.
You know what? We're gonna bank that for a future episode. But I want to dive into maybe get a couple different opinions on profanity and like being in the professional side, in the religious side,
yes,
and then like with kids. There's so many aspects of that because.
Well, and I think you and I have varying degrees of separation with that too, because we both have families, we both have small businesses.
Yep.
I work specifically with B2B clients as part of my other business, so I work with a lot of other businesses where I can and cannot use profanity depending on the clientele. And then as a father,
then they're going to listen to this and be like, Joel, you can say fuck whenever you want.
Right, but then if I have a 4 and 7-year-old, it's like I should probably limit the amount of time.
They might have a cup to the door listening to us right now.
They might. However, I feel like the amount of times that my kids have sworn, I feel like they grasp the concept of when to use it.
It's so true.
And if they use it correctly, I can't really be mad at it.
Honestly, yeah.
You know what?
So
that was the right application.
I have something that I sometimes I like something will happen, and my way of responding to something that I feel like is happening to me, or like somebody's coming at me, I say, fuck me. I'm like, well, fuck me. And my daughter asks me like, hey dad, can I like watch a show or something like that? I'm like, nah, not right now. And she's like, oh, fuck me. And I'm like, all right.
Listening to your daughter say that would be so
100%. 100%. She used it in the right context. However, I agree with this. I'm okay with this, that like not everyone is comfortable with every form of language, right? Like especially when this is very deeply rooted in a religious standpoint, or just you were told those are bad words and this is a good word. Like 100%. Use these words instead. And that's fine. I don't judge. It's definitely like how I was raised was like, don't say these words. Right. You said the same. Like agreed. I wasn't even allowed to say the word fart because it was rude. I couldn't
say darn.
I had to say toot. Oh, I couldn't say geez because it was too close to Jesus.
Oh my gosh.
Like a lot of those things that I think are very legalistic. But I can understand. I understand those words make some people feel uncomfortable, and that's okay. I think that we should try to not say those words in front of those people. Like my mom will not listen to this podcast because she won't listen to it. I don't know if she listens to podcasts anyways, but
what's a podcast?
I don't want my daughter to be alone with my mom saying fuck me. She would probably think she's hearing it wrong, but like I don't know what she would do if she realized that that's what she was saying. She would be very upset, and she would definitely have an issue with that, and that's okay. I understand why it's uncomfortable, and that's fine. But I taught her to say, "Oh man!" So now she walks around that, "Oh man!"
Oh man! You know what she means, though.
I do know what she means, but for a 3-year-old, they need. The words that they use need to be universally accepted, because if they're walking around saying the F word, it is just going to be a problem for them because they don't understand the context in which to use it.
100%.
Whereas I do. It very rarely, like honestly, it does not slip out. Like if I'm with my parents, I do not swear.
Yeah,
because
I swear very little when I'm with my parents.
It happens. Like sometimes I purposely drop a little, not an F-bomb, but like other words.
You have to extenuate the gravity of the situation sometimes with profanity.
Yes.
With conservative parents.
Yep. And they just kind of like, oh, Mark.
Marcus. How dare you? Which we have not talked about the fact that we both have 2 first names.
That's true. Mark, Paul, Joel, Keith. That's true.
Is your middle name a first name?
James.
Oh, we both have 3 first names.
I mean, whose middle name is Miller?
I don't know.
That's what I always thought it was funny when somebody said,
Mark James
do you
Paul.
have two first names or three? And I'm like, well, I mean,
funny story about that real quick, because I know we're trying to wrap up, but which may never come. There's a story where my wife and I were dating. We weren't quite engaged yet. We had a ritual. I always worked late at the restaurant that I worked at, and I would come back to the house at like 11 o'clock at night. But I would stop at Kate's house, at her parents' house when she was still living at home. And we'd stop in at 11:30 at night. She would let me in the door. And in the kitchen, we would eat a bowl of cereal together. And I remember this very distinctly. It was like 11:30 at night. And her younger brother had a friend over. And they came downstairs. And it was shortly after Kate and I started dating. And her brother came downstairs and said, "So, 2 first names, huh? Joel, Keith?" And I said, "Well, actually, my middle name's Christopher, so I have 3 first names." And his friend, they both did a look at each other and looked back, and his friend said, "It's worse than we thought."
That's amazing.
Because apparently their whole family has a whole thing about, like, if a man has 2 first names, you can't trust him.
Can't trust him.
And I got 3 first names, so you sure as shit can't trust me.
People called me the disciple for a little while because Mark James Paul,
Oh my gosh.
Actually, all disciples.
All the disciples. You're all the disciples.
If you consider
in one.
Paul the 13th disciple, which most do.
Most do.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to get into religious talk as well. So you might as well just make sure you read the titles and descriptions of these episodes before you actually start listening to them. But this has been Cock Talk, episode 1. We're very excited about this. I think this will actually make it out to
this is going to happen
to distribute.
Some people are going to listen to this. You can we'll post anything we talked about, anything we drank, all those things. We'll post them in the link below here. You can go into the description, do all that stuff. And then, any questions? How are we going to get people to ask us questions? Comments would be best for now until we have a more official way of collecting responses. But just comment below and questions that you have to ask, things that you want to know, drinks or cocktails you would like us to review. Happy to drink and tell you about it. Whether I have an opinion or not, I'll drink it. So you can also, what is it? They can go to CockTalkThePodcast.com.
Oh, yes.
And you can just drop us your email address. We'll let you know when we have a new episode. You can also subscribe wherever you're watching this, YouTube, Spotify, whatever. And that's Cock Talk, episode 1.
That's Cock Talk.
We did it.
Yes.